These particular drugs were probably headed to Trinidad or some other country in the Caribbean. This one was operating in international waters, headed towards the United States to flood our country with poison.
Contradiction number 2. Listen as Pete Hegseth describes watching the strikes and who was targeted.
I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing.
But lawmakers later said that Trump officials revealed they did not know the identities of those involved. And just yesterday, Hegseth backtracked on his own story, claiming he did not stick around long enough to watch how it all unfolded.
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand because the thing was on fire. It was exploded in fire or smoke. You can't see anything.
And when it does come to survivors, Hegseth added this. But there is new reporting from the Washington Post that suggests it may not have taken hours for the smoke to clear and for those 2 survivors to come into focus, despite Hegseth saying that it was hours later and he couldn't stick around long enough to see the end of that strike. This story is a little perplexing because this is September, by the way, September 2nd. It's been months now, and they can't seem to get their story straight. They can't seem to figure out what they're going to say. And I actually think that very first clip that we played of Marco Rubio, where he said initially that it was not going to the United States, it was going to Trinidad or some other country, and then he corrected himself to kind of get in line with what the administration was saying, that's one of the most telling to me, that they know that they need to have a particular narrative about this. Otherwise, there would be some questions that perhaps Congress would raise.
Well, the questions is that it's illegal if you know that there are survivors who are not a threat to anyone to then just go and kill them. So that's against the military law. So they have to make sure that that's not the narrative. They have to make sure that the ship isn't bombed, that they know that, and then they see people who are alive there, but like incapacitated. Not that they're there with a machine gun and trying to kill somebody else. You're not supposed to just kill the survivors. So they have to make sure that no one intentionally killed survivors. Now, what they're saying now is that the admiral, they are admitting, I believe, that there was a second strike and that that was not Pete Hegseth's call. It was the admiral's call to say, uh-oh, the boat's not wiped out. There are people in there and they can continue on forward. And so they're saying, look, it wasn't us. And look, you know what happens, Abby, especially when the camera comes on, right? Hegseth's on his old show, Fox and Friends, and he's like, I saw the whole thing. It's a human instinct to say I was there and I supervised it. And did he, didn't he? I don't know. It's probably easy to tell whether
Arthur,
he really was.
He should have watched the whole thing. He's the Secretary of Defense. This was the first strike against such a boat. Look, I think the reason they're having such a hard time keeping their narrative straight is because this is a completely fabricated narrative. When Marco Rubio said that this boat was heading towards Trinidad and Tobago, he was actually saying the truth. Most of the drugs that travel through Venezuela go through the Caribbean and end up in Europe. Most of the drugs that come to the United States come through the Pacific coast, up of Central America and Mexico. The fentanyl that is killing tens of thousands of Americans is coming through Mexico. But in order for them to justify what they are doing in Venezuela, they have to have a reason. They have to have a narrative.
The question I have is, what are they doing in Venezuela and why?
Well, I'll tell you what they're doing in Venezuela. They are attempting regime change. Nicolás Maduro is a horrible human being. He is a dictator. He is anti-American. He has destabilized the entire region. But they can't call it regime change because that in turn would require congressional approval.
The other thing is, I want to, there is a lot of bipartisan concern about this. And I think the Republicans on Capitol Hill who are raising concerns, their voices are pretty crystal clear in all of this. I should note that the admiral that you're talking about, he's going to be testifying about his side of this story this week, tomorrow. So let's play with the Republican Congress people who've been critical of this, what they've been saying lately.
There is a question of the legality of bombing people who are shipwrecked or incapacitated. I frankly think it's absolutely illegal.
We don't kill 2 survivors who are not posing an imminent threat to anybody. Doesn't sound good. And if somebody actually did this, they should be held accountable.
Our men and women get in situations where they may be blown out